Week 2, allowing. This, as with all the subsequent practices, is a sitting practice. So finding an upright but comfortable chair to sit in, and beginning by paying attention to our posture. So we express our intention with our posture, to remain awake and open and alert during this practice, but also relaxed. So uncrossing the legs and allowing the feet to be flat on the floor, sensing the support from the ground. And then bringing our attention to our back, which should be upright and straight as far as is possible for us. Perhaps bringing the back away from the back of the chair if possible, so that it is self-supporting. Or if you need to lean against the back of the chair, then doing so. The head and neck square on the shoulders, and perhaps imagining a small thread pulling the top of the head up towards the ceiling. So awake and alert, but also relaxed, so dropping the shoulders, allowing the hands to be in the lap or resting gently on the thighs. Eyes closed if you feel comfortable with this, or otherwise gently open with a soft gaze in front of you on the floor. And now bringing our awareness to our own breathing. Beginning to be aware of the sensations and movements in the front part of the body that tell us that breathing is happening. And there's no need to make any effort for the breath. There's no need to try and slow it down or deepen it, but rather simply to become aware of the breath and how it is in this moment. So aware of the sensations in the mouth or the nose as the breath enters and leaves the body. Perhaps a sense of coolness as the breath comes in, and perhaps a sense of warmth as the breath goes out. Or the rising and falling of the chest, or the gentle movements in the abdomen. And so seeing if it's possible to allow the breath to be just as it is today, and noticing how it is, perhaps shallow and short, or perhaps long and slow, perhaps slightly laboured, or perhaps very easy today. This is the breath and how it is and how it needs to be in this moment, allowing it to be just like this. Perhaps the mind is still very busy from all that we've been involved in before this practice. If so, so be it, allowing that to go on in the background. And now simply coming to the breath, being with it, falling into its rhythm, following its lead, settling with these sensations and movements of breathing. And now narrowing the focus of our attention to bring, as it were, a spotlight of attention to the movements in the abdomen as the breath enters and leaves the body, specifically in the belly area. And paying attention to each section of the cycle of breathing, starting by paying attention to how the abdomen moves as the breath enters the body, the gentle pushing outwards towards the belt. So just noticing this movement each time it comes round on the cycle of the breath for a few breaths. And now letting go of awareness of the in-breath movements and bringing awareness to the movements of the out-breath here in the abdomen, so the flattening out of the belly. Just noticing this movement each time it comes round in the cycle for a few breaths. And so now letting go of this movement of the out-breath and bringing awareness to the moment at the top of the cycle, at the top of the in-breath and just before it turns into an out-breath. Could be a short pause or maybe not, but catching this moment each time it comes round in the cycle for a few breaths. And finally bringing awareness to the moment at the end of the out-breath, the short pause, and allowing this pause to be just as long as it seems to need to be before the cycle starts up again, noticing how long it is, allowing it to be as long as it needs to be, and paying attention to this moment for a few breaths. And so now bringing even attention to the whole of the cycle of the breath as we experience it here in the abdomen, the movements of the in-breath, the turnaround, then to the out-breath, and then the pause at the end of the cycle, following this cycle moment by moment, breath by breath, and seeing how it is to keep our attention here for the next few moments as I leave space for you to do that. Now you may find that it's not long before the mind's attention has wandered away from the breath to all sorts of other things, perhaps to thoughts or thinking or images or memories, or perhaps planning the next thing that's going to happen in the day. In which case we simply notice that this has happened. This is very natural for the mind. This is what the mind does, and nothing has gone wrong with the practice when the mind has wandered. In fact, this is indeed part of the practice, noticing the mind wandering and making a decision to gently but firmly bring the attention back to these movements of the breath in the abdomen, moment by moment, and seeing if we can bring a curious attentiveness to these movements, breath by breath. And indeed, every time the mind wanders, which it probably will, simply noticing that this has happened, and bring the attention gently but firmly back to the breath. So seeing how this is for a few moments now. So noticing where the mind is, and if it has wandered, simply noticing this and bringing the attention back to these movements of the breath, following the breath moment by moment, cycle by cycle. Noticing where the mind is, coming back to the breath. So at this point, making a shift in our attention and moving from this narrow focus on the breath, now to include the whole of the body in our attention. So if you like, a wider angle, a softer focus, ready to connect with, to become aware of sensation wherever it arises in the body. You might find it helpful to imagine the breath flowing all the way down through the body on the in-breath, and all the way back up again on the out-breath, as a way of connecting with sensation in the body wherever it appears. And seeing if it's possible to bring this attitude of allowing. So allowing sensation to be here, whatever is here, if indeed there is anything to notice in the body. Sensation on the surface of the body, perhaps due to contact with the floor or the chair, contact with clothing, or warmth or coolness of the air on the skin, or sensation inside the body, tingling or throbbing or aching, or any other sensation. Connecting with sensation, allowing it to be here, just as it is. So just noticing what is present for you in the body in this moment, as you hold this wider angle, this softer focus, aware of the whole of the body. You might occasionally choose to bring your attention to a particular sensation in the body, just for a few moments. Bringing more of a spotlight of attention, perhaps imagining the breath flowing towards it for a few moments and flowing away from it. Just noticing, just becoming aware of particular sensations before then widening the focus of our attention again to incorporate the whole of the body. So checking in with different sensations, but then always coming back to this wider angle, the whole body, sensations in any part of the body. Now, it's interesting to notice how sometimes the mind gets involved in the sensations, liking or disliking, or wanting this to be here or wanting this sensation not to be here, wanting to change it in some way. So again, see if we can notice the mind getting involved like this and coming back to this attitude of allowing sensation to be just as it is, just in this moment. And if the mind gets caught up in wandering away to thoughts or a whole stream of thinking, then noticing this happening and coming back again and again to connecting with sensations in the body, allowing sensations to be just as they are. Now, it's not unusual, after sitting for a longer period like this, that we might become aware of particularly intense sensations. Perhaps sensations we'd rather not be there and we'd rather like to change by shifting or moving our posture. In which case we have two choices. We could indeed decide to shift or change our posture in order to alleviate the intensity of the sensation, or to scratch or itch. But if we choose to do this, the invitation is to bring as much awareness as we can to the whole process. So perhaps choosing to do this now, but starting by becoming aware of the intensity in the sensation itself, becoming aware too of our desire to move, to shift, to alleviate it in some way, then moving, or shifting posture, or scratching, and then noticing the after effects of this movement or this scratch. How has the sensation changed, if at all? What do we notice now? Or we could decide to practice this attitude of allowing, and so making a conscious decision not to move, not to change posture, but to move our attention towards the sensation we've become aware of. So perhaps choosing now to move your attention towards a particularly intense sensation, or practicing with any part of the body if you choose to. Moving the attention towards it. Perhaps imagining the breath flowing towards this part of the body, flowing in towards it, and flowing away from it on the out-breath. Not as a way of changing the sensation, but as a way of exploring it, become more fully aware of what this sensation is, exploring it with curiosity, with interest, seeing if it's possible to be with it, to allow this sensation to be just as it is for these few moments, while I become more deeply aware of what it is to experience intensity in the body. And then after a while of breathing with this intensity, seeing whether it changes in some way, becomes more intense or less intense, or stays the same, then coming back once again to the wider angle focus on the whole of the body, allowing ourselves to become aware of sensation in other parts of the body, wherever it arises, wherever the attention is drawn to. So there is intensity here, but there are different sensations all over the body, aware of the whole, allowing them all to be here just for the moment. And finally, as this practice draws to a close, letting go of any particular intention for our attention, and just allowing ourselves to be here with the whole of the body, aware of breathing, aware of the whole body, and as far as possible, allowing the body to be as it is, just for this moment, which is just how it needs to be. Sitting here, breathing, being.